All right, let's start this one off by addressing the elephant in the room. Fringe's Walrus looks a whole lot like ATX's Trinity Tower, and as combo lat pull-down and low-row towers, I gotta say, they are some of the best options currently on the market, but here's where things get interesting, and I'm sure neither company really want me to say this, but they also look a whole lot like the ones Legend Fitness and Life Fitness have been selling for years. And there's other companies selling something like this too. So maybe nothing in this world is original anymore and we've all lost our creativity and stopped trying, and I'll be caught in an infinite loop of reviewing the same thing again and again until I die. Or maybe none of this matters to you and this is the best lat pull down and low row for you because, to be honest, it's cheaper than a lot of other standalone selectorized options and pretty good even if it has its quirks. All right, so it's not original, but that doesn't mean it's not different from most of the options we typically see on the home gym market. Here's what I mean. This is set to my height for lat pull downs. But that means my wife would typically have to stand on a bench to reach the bar. But with the Walrus, I can adjust the height by using this trolley. And now she's not climbing on and tripping on things like she normally does. You can also drop the seat down and adjust the leg holder, which now becomes your foot plate. And you no longer have to low row off the ground, which is a nice touch for those chilly winter days when the floor is colder than the weather outside. It's got a few other tricks up its sleeve, which I'll show you as we go, but when compared to a traditional standalone lat pull down and low row, this has a few advantages, like Bells of Steel's lat low, which we reviewed, is priced similarly, but uses 60mm or 2.3-inch tubing, so you're stuck in their ecosystem of attachments. Fringe built the Walrus on 3-inch by 3-inch 11-gauge steel tubing with 1-inch holes and 2-inch hole spacing, which is the same thing racks like Rep's PR5000, Rogue's Monster, and Fringe's own Dane are built on. This thing is a tank. The advantage there is you can put attachments from any company that has a 3x3 1-inch rack on this thing, which is pretty much everyone. Now, am I actually going to use this for weighted dips or to do Bulgarian split squats off the side or whatever? No, but that won't stop me from showing you all the things you'll also never do on this so that you use my link to buy it. It is a nice touch though, and if it's not costing me anything, I'd rather have the ability to do things than to be limited. Although if you're looking for maximum functionality from a single tower, something like the Adonis would be a better choice since it has the integrated functional trainer trolley along with the lat and low row. Rogue's CTM1, which we have a review coming for, would be another one that has those same abilities. The Walrus is more of a traditional lat and low row, and I always advocate for standalone machines if you have the space and the money, and that's because they have less sacrifices. A good example would be an all-in-one rack. I love my Rep Aries and the various versions of Rogue cable integrated racks I've reviewed, but packing all that functionality into a small space makes them cluttered, and you end up with things like the trolleys and safeties in the way of each other. Or maybe you have to link the stacks to get enough weight, which lowers your pull point and can limit your range of motion. Or maybe you're pulling from a less than ideal angle as you straddle an upright. Those things might not be deal breakers for you. We all have different spaces, wants, and needs. But in a perfect world, I'm separating as much of my stuff out as I can. And the Walrus is a very good lat and low row. I've got a huge selectorized 320-pound stack and a 1-to-1 pulley ratio on the lat and low row, which means whatever weight you set this to is what you're pulling. And at 92 inches tall, with Fringe using the kind of thinner, longer plates of the Dane, that ends up giving you plenty of cable travel. The stack starts at 10 pounds and goes up 10 pounds at a time, all the way to 320 pounds, giving it one of the biggest stacks out there. For reference, Rep's Adonis has a 210-pound stack. The Trinity Tower is just under 300 pounds, Bell's Lat Low is 310, and Rogue CTM1 can be built with a 250 or 300-pound stack. So if you're just pretending to be strong online, you point to that big stack and make sure nobody knows you can't actually lift it. If you can, you could add bands to the band pegs to add more weight, or get yourself an Olympic-sized weight plate and throw it on the band peg, and now you can use it to micro-load it or add more weight. This is an underrated feature, and every company needs to add this to their weight stack. I'm not sure Fringe meant them to be used this way, but it gives them a nice little advantage over other options like ATX's Trinity Tower, because you can't throw plates on that one because of their oblong weight peg. One of the nice touches about this stack is its 10-pound starting weight. Not that anyone's starting their lat pull or low row that light, but if you're using this for other exercises like delt raises, it's a nice touch. And since the Walrus has some functional trainer capabilities, meaning I can do vertical pulls on it, you can find other uses for this. Curls being the only exercise that matters. Because if you can't curl with it, is it really a good investment? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. Obviously it wouldn't be. But because Fringe added a top pulley to this low row, you can basically pull at any angle, which is nice because it gives you a little more versatility. Although up top, you can't really do the same thing. Because of this retaining bolt here, you can only pull at a slight angle because that bolt keeps the cable from coming off track. But it's still usable for tricep pushdowns and some other movements, making this where I contradict what I just said earlier about preferring separate machines. But again, it's nice to have the option if I'm not sacrificing anything. And when it comes to lat pulls and low rows, I don't think we're sacrificing anything here. I can pull straight down on lat pulls. The big seat allows for a lot of freedom in positioning, so I can adjust to where I'm comfortable, which I'm not sure how to say this not awkwardly, but for some men, the Pegasus on the Adonis can feel a little uncomfortable and cramped. But here, if you flip up the leg holder or foot plate, whatever you want to call it, and then flop the seat down, which, by the way, they named this the Walrus because, and I kid you not, the seat flops down like a walrus. It's a terrible reason, but fun fact, when we saw the reveal of this at Home Gym Con, the name was originally the Bracken, but nobody at Fringe thought that that would get confused with Bell's Kraken, so here we are. Anyway, now I can use the underside of the leg holder as a brace to do high rows, which is why I think maybe Fringe didn't put any padding on the underside of this bar here, because it might interfere with using it as a brace, though then again, it might have just been a cost-cutting measure because this powder coat will probably get scuffed up over time, and ATX uses a rubber cover on theirs, which is a nice touch, but either way, I don't find it uncomfortable when using it as a leg holder for lat pulls. And having used both the Trinity Tower and this, I will say, while ATX's build quality and fit and finish are better with details like that rubber cover, the half shroud on the stack, and this might be the only time I've ever had weight stack stickers come apart while I put them on the stack. But those things don't affect function, and they're both imported. So do I really want to pay 30% more for positioning markers on my leg holder that are kind of pointless for a smaller weight stack that's in kilos, not pounds? Not that my muscles can tell if I'm counting by 10s or 11s. And ATX is using 70mm tubing, not 3x3, so other attachments aren't going to fit on it. Fringe also has debatably the best customer service in the business, and I doubt you'll find a better warranty than the lifetime one they have on this. Also, the Trinity Tower doesn't come with any included attachments, so you've got to add those onto the price. Now, in fairness, the Walrus doesn't come with a low row handle, only this lat bar, and honestly, I think I'd rather pick my attachments myself than get some cheap throw-in that's just baked into the price, but I think Rogue with the CTM1 is the only one allowing you to do that currently. This lap bar is okay. I definitely prefer if it was fully knurled because my hands 9 times out of 10 end up off the knurling, but it's solid, and if it didn't come with anything, I could see someone who has a slightly more logical equipment addiction than me buying this and then realizing they have no way to use it until they buy something else. Low rows work just as well as lat pulls. A cable system like this is pretty straightforward, and since Fringe is using high quality pulleys throughout, it's smooth no matter where you pull from. The leg holder folds down to become your foot plate, and it works well for that. It's stable and provides enough traction so your feet aren't slipping around. Again, I've got a ton of freedom in positioning because of the large seat, and just like with lat pulls, I can adjust the starting point of my pull simply by moving the rear trolley, so it's super easy to adjust to people of different sizes. That being said, this only works cleanly when there's something here to weigh it down. Otherwise, you've got no cable tension and end up with this kind of floppy mess. And since there's no cable retainers running along the bottom, which is kind of an odd oversight, because if you're not paying attention, the lower cable can pop out of its groove and you wouldn't really notice until you go to use it and wonder what the hell that grinding sound is. Although technically you can just always leave something up here, which works, but then I kind of get these Final Destination vibes. I don't know, it might be by design. Maybe you're supposed to leave it hanging. Maybe that's why there's no lap bar storage hanger up there, but I have my doubts. Luckily, since it's 3x3 and more sturdy than me, it isn't hard to come up with some way to store attachments on this thing. It also wouldn't have been that hard for Fringe to beef up the packaging for this. Now, in fairness, this was sent to us by Fringe for a review, and they might have rushed to get it here for the product's release, but I'm not here to make excuses for them. You can see it took some pretty good shots on the leg holder and front upright, and there's some scuffs and dings in other places too. I'm sure if I reached out, based on how good Fringe's customer service is, they'd fix this somehow or replace it, but I made the channel to help people who are spending their hard-earned money, not to pander to companies who are going to pander to me. So if you like self-righteous speeches and in-depth reviews, subscribe for more of that. All right, the million-dollar question. Where does this end up in a market that's becoming very saturated with very good options? If you're looking for a do-it-all style lat and low row with as much functionality packed into it as possible, then Rep's Adonis that you can see behind me, or Rogue CTM1, which we literally just got in, are likely your best bets. They're both very refined and incredibly versatile with their multi-function seats, but they're also much more expensive, with them both coming in around $3,000 or likely more depending on how you build them. Of course, those designs are both heavily inspired by Prime's HLP single stack, another very good option, but by the time you include the seat and shipping, you're spending over $4K, even with Code Gluck saving you money at Prime. Eh? See how I worked that in there? The Walrus at $2,250 shipped, and with Fringe often running sales, that saves you quite a bit over any of those. Even ATX's Trinity Tower at $2,900 costs a good amount more. It is the more refined of the two, the build quality is better, and kudos to ATX for being the first to bring this into the home gym market, but not our home gym market in the US, because I still can't buy it yet. But if I could, do I want to spend more money for what's basically the same thing? Of course, there's more traditional offerings like Bells of Steel's Tower and Titans, but I think if I'm in this budget range with their prices being so similar, I'd rather have the Walrus. This right now for a traditional style lat and low row is my top pick. Fringe did a great job with the Walrus, naming it aside. Let me know what you think. Thanks to our Patreons, and thanks for watching.